This came about. So, Canadian woman who was just detained in U.S. immigration jails returns to Vancouver. This is from CTV News. That's the woman there in the corner. Canadian woman who was detained in U.S. immigration jails returned to Vancouver. After a dozen days being shuffled between detention centers in the United States, Jasmine Mooney has made it back to Vancouver. The Canadian entrepreneur who was detained after applying for a visa at the US Mexico border on March 3rd touched down at Vancouver International Airport shortly after midnight Saturday morning. I'm still, to be honest, really processing everything, Mooney told reporters who are waiting for her at YVR's international arrivals area. I haven't slept in a while and haven't eaten proper food in a while, so I'm just really going through the motions. Speaking to CTV News via a fellow detainee's phone earlier this week, Mooney said she had received hardly any information about why she was being detained or why she be able to leave. At the airport Saturday, she said she remained in dark about the reasons for her detention, even though she was transported from Arizona back to San Diego to board her flight back to Canada. No one told me anything, not once, Mooney said. I still don't even know how I'm home, she added. My friends and family and the media are the reason I think that I'm home. Mooney acknowledges that she had a previous U.S. visa canceled, but she did not think that she'd have any issue applying for a new one with a new job offer. Her story resonates with Canadians at a time of heightened tensions between Canada and the United States as U.S. President Donald Trump continues to threaten his northern neighbor with annexation. BC Premier David Eby weighed in on Moni's story earlier this week, saying it reinforces the anxiety that many British Columbians have and many Canadians have about our relationship with the United States right now and the unpredictability of this administration and its actions. Asked whether she felt Trump's border policies led to her detention, Mooney couldn't say. I have no idea, she said. I don't want to point fingers at anyone. I really don't know. I really don't know. But obviously, people can speculate what they want. She said even the guards who brought her to San Diego looked at her paperwork and were very confused about why she had been detained. Asked if she regretted attempting to apply for a visa at the border, Mooney laughed. So, this is the problematic situation with obviously the ICE agents that are out in full force that are cracking down on what was supposed to be illegal criminals. At least that's what the proposal was, that they were going to do mass export deportations of illegal criminals through all these different metropolitan areas. And it started off as being a good thing. It started off being like this kind of force of, oh, we're cracking down on criminals. We're doing backgrounds on these people. We are looking at police records to show that people that have convicted of crimes and have a police record uh, need to be deported. And rightfully so. I agree with that statement. But this is the problem when you have too much power and too much influence and no accountability to maintain its course. And this is kind of one of those things where, the saying goes, when you have too much too having too much power means too much responsibility. Um with great power comes great responsibility. That's the quote. I don't know why I was messing that up. But because ICE agents, now that we know that they're highly influential and gotten so much approval by the federal government, gotten so much approval by the Trump administration, are extending their powers and abusing their powers to go after tourists. They're going after legal residents. They're going after. Look at what happened with Muhammad Khalid. Look at what's happening because of a man who's a legal resident, graduated for Columbia University, and went to a protest that the Trump administration disagrees with. He's now being threatened deportation. He has no criminal conviction, but they're threatening to deport him. Same with this woman. This woman applied for a visa and had it retracted, had it canceled by the United States and was applying for a new visa, which she is not criminally convicted of anything, and they put her in a detention facility. So this is why it's very, very cautionary to understand the motivations of ICE agents. That it's not always the true intentions as they want you to believe. That when you give uncountable power to ICE officials, to ICE agents, and give so much uh just unchecked power to this agency that is corrupted, that is exploitive, that can abuse their powers at whim, this is what happens. And this is what needs to be held account. And this is why we need to look harshly into the policies and make sure that ICE officials that were supposed to be cracking down on illegal criminals follow course, because now they're just branching over and overreaching to measures of putting innocent people like her in prison and deporting people for practicing their free speech. Um, of course she said. So that's after she left. Of course she said, if I knew that was even a possibility, like even a possibility that could happen, I would have never in a million years gone there. I'm telling you, from the second I got there to now, I can't even process what just happened. Her advice for Canadians who are applying for visas in the United States right now: don't go where you can't come directly back to Canada, she said, explained that the U.S. official she spoke to when she was first presented herself at the border told her she hadn't done anything criminal and would be sent back to Canada. Mooney said she started looking into booking flights, thinking that she would be able to show the Border Patrol officers that she had made arrangements to return to her home country. Without warning, she said, she was taken into custody and began her detention odyssey. She then said the other detainees she met were confused by her situation. One of the women she met had been in detention for 10 months, Mooney said. So, a woman who had her visa canceled and was applying for a new one, and she even stated to the border agents, stated to the ICE officials, who has not been criminally convicted of anything. Even they agreed with that she hasn't been criminally convicted of anything. Even stated that she was making arrangements to return back to Canada. So she's leaving the United States, and they send her to a detention facility. Even after all that, they send her to a detention facility with no criminal conviction, no reason why. Nobody knows why. They're not telling her anything, but they're imprisoning her because she's a Canadian in America. Like, it goes to show you how one initiative, that the initial policies that be presented expand further and further on and completely diminish the original intention of this initiative. Having the ICE officials in places like Chicago and Boston and New York, and having these, what they called raids. I wouldn't use that term, but it really was kind of like a raid. Having those ICE agents were supposed to go after people of criminal convictions, gang members, rapists, people that are friends of the playground, if to use that term. They were supposed to go after those people and with criminal conviction and then deport them. That, hey, you're convicted of a crime, you're here illegally, that is grounds for deportation. But because they are not held to the same accountability that the United States holds account to, say, Social Security and Medicare right now, like they're going off the walls of, oh my God, so much corruption in Social Security and Medicare. That's why we got to cut them. We got to cut them because there's so much misuse. There's so much corruption in this. And just sitting back and allowing ICE to do what they do is going to allow for stuff like this. And how do you think it's going to work out? How do you think that that image that now you just detained a Canadian woman, how's that going to look for you? How's that going to look? How's that image going to look to the rest of the world? That you're detaining people um, who are just visiting, who are applying for visas, that are doing the legal process in entering the country, are also being detained. So here's global news. This is Global National reporting on this.
This is holy water.
This Canadian businesswoman, founder of a water health drink brand, is speaking out after being held in what her family calls inhumane conditions at an American detention center. She was arrested by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, on March 3rd after crossing the border between Mexico and San Diego. Speaking with ABC 10 News, she describes what happened.
I was reapplying for my work visa, and with no warning about what was about to happen, I was taken by ICE. They told me I was unprofessional because I didn't have a proper letterhead.
Her mother says she was held for 3 nights at the border before being transferred while handcuffed and in chains to a detention center in San Diego and later moved to a facility in Arizona.
I was put in a cell, and I had to sleep on a mat with no blanket, no pillow, with an aluminum foil wrapped over my body like a dead body for 2.5 days. There are girls, women that have been in here for weeks, for months, and have not been told anything.
Mooney moved to LA in the summer of 2024, working on her business with a 3-year work visa, which she applied for successfully by entering the U.S. from Mexico. She was trying to do the same thing after her first visa was unexpectedly revoked in November. Lawyer Len Saunders does not represent her, but says he spoke with her a few weeks ago.
When she told me she was going there, I advised her not to, only because of the current political climate. She may be down there for a few more months minimum.
Global Affairs Canada says the government can't intervene in the entry or exit requirements of other countries.
What I am livid about is the length of time she's been in custody and the inhumane living conditions these women have been in.
The U.S. Department of Homeland Security says ICE has made more than 32,000 arrests since President Trump's inauguration, and its detention centers are at capacity. Legal experts say it's hard to understand why U.S. authorities would expend so many resources on a Canadian with no criminal record and no charges, leaving many wondering if they're making an example of people like Mooney to send a message. Nitu Garcha, Global News, Vancouver.
So this is it's disastrous, it's heartbreaking, and it's also just really confusing. It's so really confusing, the fact that they're detaining a Canadian who already had a visa, was working in LA, had the visa revoked. They didn't tell her, no information on why that original visa got revoked. She went and tried to apply for a new one, and they immediately detained her. No criminal conviction, not accused of anything. Just being a Canadian citizen, getting a work visa to work in California, to work in Los Angeles, being detained. And people have no idea why she's being detained. So, again, it really is, with great power comes great responsibility. ICE, it's because of just how corrupted, so laid back the agency is, and just how corrupted it is. They're just going power mad crazy by detaining anyone they choose. They're going after people that contradict free speech. They're going after people that are just visiting in the United States, that aren't convicted of crimes. They can't prove anything. They can't prove how malice these people are. But they're threatening to deport them. They're threatening to prosecute them and jail them. There was that mention about how they wanted to send illegal migrants to Guantanamo Bay, because just to prosecute them for the sake of crossing into the border. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. And more so in the fact that no one's really held to account just how corrupted these agencies are. Like, no one's holding them to account whatsoever. Um, so here's even another example of this. This is a British tourist who is in the United States. A British tourist from the Seattle Times. British tourist in custody at Tacoma ICE Detention Center for weeks. This is from March 11th. Becky Burke was supposed to be on a life-changing 4-month backpacking trip across North America, but that turned into a nightmare after Canada refused her entry and she was subsequently detained by ICE. So Canada also even plays a part to this. I guess I'm wrong. We're not exactly that much on open borders. We don't open it that much to people. For a British tourist who is backpacking to be detained by ICE. And so here's this is from the news. This is from a morning show in England. This is kind of like breakfast television. Good Morning Britain. And they talked to the parents of this tourist who was detained by ICE. Has no criminal conviction, just coming into the country to do some backpacking, try to apply for a work visa so that maybe she can get some money on the side to pay for this trip, but predominantly just visiting. And ICE just decided to detain her without any question, without any investigation. And here's the parents speaking out about it.
Very worrying time for you, of course. Your daughter is being detained. Just talk to us about how she's being detained, what's happening to her right now.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. Becky is our oldest daughter. She's a graphic artist, comic book creator. And in January, she embarked on what she thought was going to be a once-in-a-lifetime 4-month backpacking trip around North America. Initially, Andrea and I were very concerned that she was doing a solo trip as a young woman. But when she told us it was to the USA and Canada, we thought that's probably the two safest countries for a British person to do some solo traveling. And because of a visa mix-up, she has now been detained for nearly 2 weeks by ICE in a large detention center in Tacoma.
So their excuse to detain this young woman who was just being a tourist in America is because of a visa mix-up. Not because of her, but because of ICE themselves. So because of the screw-up that the agency did to themselves, they're detaining her. They're putting her in a detention facility, an immigrant detention facility, because being a tourist, they mixed up her visa. No conviction of a crime. No reason why they had to detain her. She wasn't told any of this. But because the agency mixed up her visa status, they detained her.
Washington. And we really just want to get her home. You and I as tourists, if we fly into the US or anywhere and we haven't got the right visa, they'll tell us to get on the plane and go back home. This is a paperwork mix-up and they're holding her in what we can't believe the conditions she's being held in. It's a proper prison environment.
It seems a very heavy-handed way to handle this situation. She is with other women who are being held for weeks and weeks, but also, as you said, in prison clothing, denied access to good food and to ordinary communications. It must be very, very worrying, distressing for you that this holiday's turned into such a nightmare.
it's incredible, and it's a surreal situation that they are told. Becky has told us that when any of the women arrive at the detention centre, including her, they're told that this is not a jail, but the conditions are an exact definition of a jail. She had all her possessions confiscated. She had to swap away from her own clothes, and she's wearing a prison jumpsuit. She's a vegan, so the only solution for a vegan is for her to be given rice, potatoes, and mushy beans every day, and that's for the last 14 days.
So again, just to remind people, because of the agency screwing up the paperwork that she gave them, she had every legal document to apply for a visa, but because of their screw up, she was detained 14 days at this facility, claiming it was not a jail. They confiscated everything, all of her personal belongings. They traded in her outfit for a prison jumpsuit, and they fed her nothing but potatoes, cold beans, and peas, which ironically is the formation of a perfect British diet right there. But still, it's saddening. It's still sad. And considering this is the administration that talks about freedom, that talks about liberty, and the same administration that is so dead set concerned about immigration and illegals coming into the country, as they're promoting H-1B visas to replace tech workers, to replace truck drivers, to replace essential services, as they're pledging support. And I want to get to this today, but we didn't have enough time. They want to give citizenship to South African colonists to enter in the United States. Give them free legal access to come through the border. The South African colonists. I wonder who else is a South African immigrant with billions of dollars, one of the world's richest men, that's highly influential, that may have played a part into it. But this young woman, because she's a tourist, and because of their own screw up, they detained her for 14 days with no examination, no questions asked. So this is shocking. This is shocking. And this should drive you insane. This should drive people deliberately insane. Even the MAGA supporters can't deny how just disgusting and distraughting this is. 14 days because she's a tourist.
Today, last night, we spoke to her, and she said she had to see the medic because she's got digestive problems. I think most people would have digestive problems after 2 weeks on cold rice and potatoes. Nobody can contact her. She has to ring out.
So it was rice, potatoes, and beans for 14 days straight. And not only is that just massively, unethical and just the illegal detainment of a tourist for doing nothing wrong, because she had all the documents there. Same with we just saw with the Canadian woman that finally just returned back. It, again, just goes to show you that sitting back and laying back and pretending that these agencies are going to do what they say is just absolutely bonkers. To say that only ICE is going to crack down on illegal criminals and just to lay back and say, okay, just let them do what they do. Pay no attention to them. Don't hold them account. Don't keep an eye on them, is disgusting, because that's what's going to lead to this. That's what's going to lead to this abuse of power, this unethical situation where they're just capturing people left, right, and center that don't need to be detained. Like the Canadian woman was applying for a visa. She already had a visa. She's not criminally prosecuted with any crime. There's no police record or nothing about her. She obviously is able to get that visa, but they denied her and they threw her into a detention facility. And the British woman who went backpacking through North America, was a simple tourist, and had the legal documents to prove all this stuff. Even the ICE officials admitted that they screwed up themselves. They still detained her. So it's just awful. It's awful, not only for just just for the process of this, but also what kind of tone, what kind of view, what kind of president is that going to set for the rest of the world? And how is that going to affect tourism? How is that going to affect people coming into the United States? You know, we've been told, because of this tariff war, we've been lectured by, the mainstream media and politicians that, you have to give up traveling to the United States. You don't want to fly down there, or you don't want to vacation down there because of the tariff war. But now, because of this, is that also going to cause more of a grift, more of butting heads because of the situation? Is that going to cause more aggression? Because now you're locking up Canadians and British people that aren't convicted of anything. Is that now? Because now that's going to be broadcasted on national television. Canadians are aware of this. The British people are aware of this. Americans are aware of this. Like, if they can go after Mahmoud Khalid for participating in a protest that that the federal government doesn't like, violating First Amendment rights, they can do anything. They can go after anybody for anything and just falsify claims. Oh, well, there was a mix-up in the agency, so yeah, we got to throw her into this jail. But it's not a jail. They have to remind, it's not a prison. It's not a prison. Or we're going to confiscate everything. We're going to put you in an orange jumpsuit. We're going to feed you the most disgusting food, shove it down your throats, and you have no means of contacting anyone or finding out exactly why you're detained. Like, after watching this, who's gonna risk themselves going to the United States at this point because of this? And it's scary to imagine. It's scary to imagine. Like, I know many Canadian seniors that have vacation homes in a lot of the southern parts, Texas, Florida, Arkansas, Louisiana, California. They have vacation homes down there. Are they going to risk knowing that ICE agents are in full bloom to potentially crack down on them because they're Canadian agents, even though they're just tourists? Even though they have violated no crime, there's no police record, they can go down to the policing in that area, they can confirm all that, they have the legal paperwork to prove that they are innocent, and they can easily go into the country. Even with all that, are you willing to go down there and be detained? Are you willing to risk the potential for ICE to say, screw it, I'm going to lock you up just for the shits and giggles of it? Because if they can do it to a tourist, there's no stopping them. That's why we need to hold them account. And that's why it's so important not just let ICE roam free, but to actually monitor and check and really scrutinize these agencies and their potential of what they can do.